when you're raising these strong Americans, when you're raising young people who are going to be incredible successes in the business world, in the corporate world, running their own businesses in our capitalistic, wonderful society that we have, making money, helping their communities, donating to charity. This is what we've created now with millions and millions and millions of girls and young women being pumped out into our society through Title IX, even if they didn't play college sports, even if they played high school sports for a year or two, and then they have such knowledge, wisdom, they are better people. They are wonderful, leaders, future leaders of our country, because they learn those life lessons on the playing field that for generations we only let boys and men learn.
Welcome to today's version of the Keynote Curators podcast. I'm Seth Deckman. I'm your host, founder, and president of the Keynote Curators. Our special guest today is Christine Brennan, award-winning journalist, sports columnist, television sports analyst, and best-selling author. In our conversation, Christine and I travel through her coverage of over 20 Olympic Games and every sporting event on the planet known to mankind. It's a fascinating conversation that covers elite performance, the importance of Title IX on society, and more importantly, the difference it makes for you and how you can apply the lessons that she's learned in your day-to-day life. It's a fascinating conversation. We appreciate you being with us. Listen in, you'll be smarter for it. Hello and welcome to today's version of the Keynote Curators podcast. Our guest today is the one and only Christine Brennan. Welcome, Christine.
Seth, it's great to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
It is great to be here. I mean that we've known each other for a long, long time. And whether it's chatting via text messages or emails or quick phone calls or seeing you at events, I feel like I could talk to you forever. So I'm going to have to control myself and stay on task.
Sounds good. I know you and I have had some great experiences at speeches and events that I'm so honored to be a part of. And you, of course, are fantastic too, with your contacts to be able to connect me and link us up to get to do those. So it's great to talk to you virtually as opposed to in person as well.
Yes, great. So Christine, a lot's been written about you. I know you're, a low-key, low-profile, and the work speaks for itself. You're an award-winning columnist. You're a well-known TV commentator. You've authored several best-selling books. Just for our listeners and those who are going to be joining in the conversation at any point, whether it's on our website or on our podcast site, what got you inspired to get into the field of journalism?
Seth, I always loved to read. I always loved the news. Our whole family did. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. My mom and dad always had the radio on to all news in the suburbs of Toledo, Ohio. Ottawa Hills is where we grew up. And NBC Nightly News was our preferred newscast at night. We watched it, as we were eating dinner. We were all about current events in our family. And when we go on vacation, of course, grabbing the newspaper, I would always ask my dad or my mom if I could have the sports section. Of course, they did give it to me. But I also was a religious reader of the A section, the front page.
Right.
And we got several newspapers at home in Toledo, the Toledo Blade, Toledo Times, Detroit paper, Wall Street Journal. And so I just grew up loving news. I had a diary from the age of 10 onward where every day I would just write in it. So I had that kind of discipline to write, even if it was saying something like nothing happened today. And then I have them all. So it's kind of funny to look at them now. And then the next day, nothing happened today either. It's pretty funny.
Right.
But also, vocabulary words and sports events, and as I started to play sports. So anyway, just a real love of news, information, newspapers. And my mom, I give full credit to my parents for raising us that way.
Yeah, it's a calling. Spending time with you, and correct me if I'm wrong in any way that I frame it or talk about you. You're a very well-known, well-respected journalist who writes primarily 98% of your stuff has to do directly with sports, whether it's sport adjacent or not. And to reduce it down to just some best-selling books or appearances on CNN or how many Olympics you covered, to me is almost, dare I say, it doesn't do justice to the breadth of your coverage and how you've been woven into so many changes in society. And the vehicle has been your coverage of sports. I want to go right into the deep end. I want to talk about Title IX. I want to hear your observation. Give us just a little kind of, 101 background on Title IX for some of our listeners. Tie that thread into the state and play of where we are with its impact on society. And if you can, even how it has impacted women, particularly in business.
Absolutely, Seth. Well, Title IX was signed by Richard Nixon June 23rd of 1972. So just had the 50th anniversary. People may have heard of that. Lots of attention, lots of panels, discussions, columns, all kinds of things. I was a participant in a lot of those, and I wrote 2 major pieces in USA Today that day that I think people would enjoy. You can find them just by Googling me and USA Today and Title IX, and that's the Roman numeral IX.
Right.
And it was basically a law that was focused at the time on law schools and med schools. The idea was if you're taking federal funding, then how dare you discriminate against half the population, against women? But within a few years, it came to be part of sports. And again, it was about giving girls the opportunities that their brothers had had for generations. Think about it. It's not just about creating Olympic gold medalists or college scholarship athletes. In fact, I would make the strong case, Seth, it has a lot to do with that, but also nothing to do with that.
Right.
It's about allowing that 5-year-old girl that you see in the kitchen every morning to go play soccer in the first little soccer league like her brother, and the 7-year-old to do t-ball, and the 9-year-old to do flag football, or to play volleyball, or to start basketball, travel basketball, or house league basketball, the way her brother has and boys had for generations. And what do you do there? You learn life skills. You learn how to win at a young age, and you learn how to lose at a young age. You learn about teamwork and sportsmanship. And to think that for generations in this great country of ours, we were telling 51% of our nation, in other words, girls and women, no, you cannot learn those life lessons. No, you cannot stay in shape. No, you can't care about fitness. No, you can't play sports. No, you can't learn how to lose at a young age. What in the world were we thinking? Good news is Richard Nixon signed it. I think there's 3 guys who still hate Title IX out there somewhere, Seth. I think they're hiding under a desk in Montana.
Yeah.
Just announced right now. Come on out, guys.
Come on out whenever you're ready, because
it's over.
2023 is calling.
Well, it is absolutely the greatest success story, one of the great success stories in our country, in really the blink of an eye in our nation's history. The nation has fallen in love with what we've created. And don't just think about the blue states. Think of the reddest of red states politically. Alabama, Mississippi. There are dads as we are speaking, and moms, but let's go with the dads, who grew up with sports. Mom maybe didn't play sports, who have their little, 10, 12-year-old daughter out there learning how to pitch a softball the proper way because they're thinking of college scholarships. This is how this has taken hold, and it goes to the Women's World Cup in '99 and all the subsequent stories about the women's soccer team. Olympic gold medals. Women now dominate the U.S. team. If you love the Olympics and you cheer for the red, white, and blue, you love Title IX, because if there's no Title IX, you've never heard of the women's soccer team. Doesn't exist. You've never heard of Alex Morgan. Doesn't exist. Right. Never heard of Megan Rapinoe. That is how dramatic this law has been. And moving forward for our culture, it's not just sports, because when you're raising these strong Americans, when you're raising young people who are going to be incredible successes in the business world and the corporate world, running their own businesses in our capitalistic, wonderful society that we have, making money, helping their communities, donating to charity. This is what we've created now, with millions and millions and millions of girls and young women being pumped out into our society through Title IX, even if they didn't play college sports, even if they played high school sports for a year or two, and then they have such knowledge, wisdom. They are better people. They are wonderful, leaders, future leaders of our country, because they learn those life lessons on the playing field that for generations we only let boys and men learn. And so in terms of Congress, we're already seeing it. So many of these women now in their 20s and 30s, even into their 40s, playing sports. Now they're running for Congress, the Senate, running for president. And of course, they're leading universities, they're leading their CEOs. And that's just the start, because Title IX's 50, but we really kind of ignored it for the first 15 years or so. So it's really kind of only 35 years old. So a girl who's 10 today, Seth, when she's 50, oh my gosh. Right. I mean, we will have had women presidents for it throughout the 30s and 40s and 50s.
Right.
We'll have women running companies. We'll have more than 50 women in the Senate. More than 50% of the House of Representatives will be women. And I think the common denominator, the reason for all of that, will be because these women played sports because of Title IX. Not that I'm a big fan of Title IX or anything.
Right. It's, without getting into under the hood of it, there are flaws in it, but I think the spirit of it is important.
What are the flaws?
I don't know. I was just
there are no flaws.
I was just kind of covering myself.
Yeah, no. There are what people over the, and I didn't mean to call you on it. But
no, call me on it because I was just.
I did, and I will. The talking points that thankfully are long gone mostly are that they're cutting men's Olympic sports, men's minor sports, cutting wrestling. Right. But that's why George W. Bush, listening to Hastert, wanted to examine Title IX. Well, guess what? Bush ended up basically saying, it's a great law and we're reinforcing it all. And that was the last time anyone ever tried to weaken Title IX. That was in 2003 and 2004. But you'll still have some of these, unfortunately, misogynistic, sexist people out there who want to say, oh, well, Title IX, blah, blah, blah. Are you kidding? Yeah. Title IX didn't show up 50 minutes ago or 50 weeks ago or 50 months ago. It's been 50 years that athletic directors could figure out how to be in compliance with the law. And there are 3 different ways, and we're not going to go into it. It is the easiest law on earth to be in compliance with, and no one has ever gotten in trouble, thrown in jail or anything. They've lost lawsuits left and right, but but no one's, no punishment for any individual person in terms of the participation side. Yes, on the sexual abuse side, which is a wonderful piece of Title IX that we are now seeing on college campuses. But anyway, bottom line is, and these athletic directors then slash and burn men's Olympic sports. Horrible, terrible decision making.
Yeah.
But they've had 50 years to get with the plan. So to me, it's a great law, and we shouldn't blame the incompetence of athletic directors.
Yeah. And I completely delete my statement. I was talking a little bit out of my to try to cover myself because
no, I love you. No problem.
Look, I have studied. I know 𝘠𝐤𝑬𝐿 King's personal impact just because of my history, my personal history on tennis, and I follow it. And I'm the father of 3 daughters who play every sport imaginable, and it's normal. And I know I look at them, and while they might not be Serena Williams or Megan Rapinoe, they might not be Megan Rapinoe or Mia Hamm. Mia Hamm, I'll date myself a little bit, but they might be a CEO. And
they will be a CEO.
Yeah, because that's the impact. You touched on a few of them, and it's for young men too, but women who, because of Title IX and its impact, have been able to experience. I like how you included winning and losing, being on a team, having to perform, have the pressure, as Billie Jean says, it's a privilege. And I don't know, it's somewhere upwards of 90% of women CEOs in the Fortune 100 or 500 played some type of athletics, if not college athletics.
Well, the C-suite, it's like 96% of C-suite women played sports.
Right.
If that isn't, yes. And the Title IX males, you alluded to that. The big story, one of the big stories in 2022 was the U.S. Women getting equal pay from U.S. soccer. Well, you know who had to give up money to make that happen? The U.S. men's national team that had that really nice run in the World Cup. Those guys, all in their obviously teens and 20s, gave up money so that the women could have equal pay. Who gives up money? No one.
Right.
Those are Title IX males. Those are young men who sat and watched their sisters play sports. And instead of thinking it was weird or strange for a girl to play sports, which was being said when I was playing sports, it was like the coolest girls were playing sports in high school. And the coolest women were playing sports in college. And the respect that these men had for women, that they then obviously wanted to give up some of the money that they get from the massive men's World Cup prize money to make sure the U.S. women had equal pay. That story got a lot of attention. It still was underplayed. The Title IX males that we have created and what that's going to mean in terms of saying to a spouse, you run for Congress, I won't.
That's right.
I'll stay home with the kids.
Right.
The sea change is extraordinary.
Yeah, it's interesting because you make me think, if I can dare, go into the sociological aspect of it all. It's also generational because those young men who are, Christian Pulisic, and you could name the whole men's national team. Are they very young millennials? Are they kind of middle Gen Zers that they grew up in Title IX? There's a phrase, born digital, right? Mm-hmm. They grew up Title IX, if you will. I don't know how to
Totally.
say
They're
it.
Title IX males, as I said. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh no, we have created an entire mindset that is all the women playing sports and the men who accept it and love it, as I alluded to. That dad who 35, 40-year-old dad in Alabama, Ruby Red, Alabama, who's out pitching with his daughter.
That's
To
right.
make sure that she's good enough to maybe get a college scholarship.
Who, by the way, have a very good women's softball team, Division I.
Exactly, as does my alma mater, Northwestern.
Yeah, perennially.
So yes. Anyway, but yes, we can agree. It is. I think it's the most important law in our country the last 50 years. Seth, I know that's saying a lot, but I really do. There's a lot of competition for that. I cannot imagine, especially what the next 50 years will be.
Yeah, I've heard you say it before. And to think that Billie Jean King, when she was the #1 tennis player at UCLA, and had to do home stays in the dorms, but the men's team got to stay in the Holiday Inn and they took the bus and the men's team got to fly. It's kind of, things have certainly changed, if you will.
They have. There's more to go, but it's an amazing story for sure.
Well, let's take a shift a little bit to the Olympics. I often check a date with you and you're like, I'm in Sochi or I'm in Lake Placid, or I'm dating myself again, but you seem to be.
I was still in college on Lake Placid at 80, but yes, I was watching every second on television for sure.
Yeah.
But yes, lots of 20 in a row. I'm so
20 in
fortunate.
a row. I have in my notes 18. I'm not very good at math. So 20 in a row. And that's since 1984.
I started with the LA Games in 1984, Seth. I would have hoped as a girl growing up to go to one Olympics as a fan. In other words, to pay my own way and go with my family. And now the last 20 in a row, winter and summer, all expenses paid, working for Washington Post or now USA Today, ABC, CNN, PBS NewsHour, NPR. I mean, I could burst into tears. Beyond my wildest dreams.
That's why I say it's a calling and it's bigger than you. And you're kind of, not to belittle your work and your effort, but you're a trailblazer. And I know there's women that you give homage to before you who were, the big time, few and far between female journalists who were women who covered sports primarily. But you then took it and really expanded it. And the Olympics seems to be an area that you thrive in, that you have just a tremendous amount of experience and depth. You know my history. My children are dual nationals, Argentine. It broke my heart when Ginobili and his band of bandits beat the U.S. in Greece, and you were there covering that, and we've spoken about that. But the thing that we recently spoke about just about a year ago was the scandal with the Russian ice skaters. And it's a big topic. There's a lot there. I just, open forum, I don't know if you're doing a little bit more elaborate, if there's a series, a docu-series, some type of investigative journalism film going on around that, a book. But I know that you were in the heart of the matter. Could you lift the veil a little bit as much as you can about that with us?
Oh, absolutely. It's the 𝐂𝐫𝐢𝐬𝐬𝑆 story. I'm sure many people remember February of 2022. So almost a year ago now. She was caught doping, but they didn't announce it until she'd already helped the Russians win the team figure skating gold medal. So at that point, then there was a hearing and she was allowed to continue to compete at the Olympics, which was outrageous decision. So anyway, then she, of course, the weight of the world on her shoulder, the story just, enveloped the Olympic Games. I think I was on CNN 50 times. And I do work for CNN, but they moved me into their hotel because I was on so much, and Good Morning America and ABC and all the opportunities I have and my various employers. But anyway, so it was just a story that just swallowed up the Olympics. And then she, under the weight of that pressure, 𝐂𝐫𝐬𝐬𝐬𝑆 stumbled to fourth place. She was the odds-on gold medal favorite to win the women's competition a week and a half later. So that story continues. I've been able to break a lot of little pieces of the story as it goes along. Just last week, Russia exonerated her. Said that she took the drug, but they didn't have any punishment other than negating the results of that day, which was December 25th of 2021, that national championship. So it didn't even matter. So basically a slap on the wrist, no slap on the wrist. And that's Russia's decision. The good news is it will likely then be appealed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, CAS. There's a lot of alphabet soup here. And WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, and the International Skating Union will probably appeal to CAS for a ruling. And the really sad and interesting part of this is that as you know, as we've said, I've covered a lot of Olympics, and never have I seen athletes win medals, but never get them.
Yeah.
Because Russia, being Russia, they were doping and terrible scheme to put bad urine through a hole in the wall and get the good urine out to cheat their brains out and cheat all kinds of athletes around the world who should have won medals when the Russians stole them. That was 2014 in Sochi. They should have been banned completely from Rio in 2016. They were partially. 2018, banned. 2020, which was 2021 Tokyo, they should have been banned, and Beijing. I mean, they're like the petulant little child.
If it walks like a duck.
Well, you send to your room and then a minute later you let the kid back. That's not punishment. Well, that's what happened with Russia. Anyway, because of their behavior, because of what they've done, what Russia has done, it meant that they couldn't have a medal ceremony because they were trying to figure out who won. Russia won that gold medal, as I said, US second and Japan third, Canada fourth in the team competition. Instead of having a medal ceremony, they didn't have one. And so to this day, as we speak, those athletes do not have their medals. The Russians, obviously, that's in limbo. The US won the silver. They'd move up to gold if Russia is disqualified, if 𝘩𝘢𝘳𝑚 is disqualified. But we may not know that until 2024, according to an expert of mine. It may be another year.
Right.
So those athletes, US athletes, the Japanese athletes, and potentially the Canadians, if they were to move from fourth up to the bronze medal. It is absolutely egregious the way the Russians have held the Olympics hostage. It is doping. It is cheating. This is what they do. This is what they will always do. The Russians are known to cheat. And when people will say, oh, but what about Lance Armstrong? What about Marion Jones? Yes, the his and her worst doping cheats in the world.
Yeah.
Lance Armstrong, male, of course, Marion Jones, female. The difference was that was not state sponsored. Obviously, Lance Armstrong was caught by the US anti-doping agency. In Russia, it is state sponsored. They want you to cheat. And RUSADA, the Russian anti-doping agency, is in on the scheme.
Yeah.
It is a huge difference when it's state sponsored doping, probably from Putin on down, or if it's one individual or two individuals who are cheating who get caught and kicked out, is what's happened with the US with Marion Jones and Lance Armstrong. So that's the difference when people want to have that argument.
I mean, there is so much there, Christine. I know, you're an elite, and I'm not just blowing smoke up here. You're an elite journalist. And when you put pen to paper and print it and your name is on that article and you're saying that they're cheating, that's not a small thing. You have to have your ducks in a row. You have to have your facts. You have to have your citations and all that. How does that happen? Because there's hearsay, there might even be eyewitnesses, but these Russians are cruel and ruthless in how they do this. That seems like a whole story in itself on how you break the story.
I was really honored to break that story worldwide, and that was a very big deal in Beijing almost a year ago. And how you break a story that big, of that magnitude, that it was 𝘩𝘢𝘳𝑚, that the Russians cheated. Because what we had, Seth, was that the medal ceremony was postponed. That's it. And since I'd covered all these Olympics, I knew that meant it was something huge because you don't ever postpone a medal. So at that point, okay, why was the medal ceremony postponed? And what I did was I flooded the zone. I emailed, texted, called all of my sources, people I've known for 30, 35 years. And one of them in particular came through for me and told me what had happened. And that's journalism 101. There's no one really hands you anything. You just work harder than everybody else. And I did that. And it took a couple hours in Beijing. And I was dealing with the various time zones of my sources. And I knew that somebody was, okay, well, he's about to go to sleep because he's in the United States, but this one is up, and just waiting to hear from people and forcing the issue.
And burner phones.
Yes, because we had to have burner phones and burner laptops because we knew the Chinese might be watching us. Although I don't. Well, go ahead and watch. I don't get what if you're going to see the top of my kitchen. My camera will be focused at my kitchen ceiling most of the time.
Right.
But yes, it's one of the highlights of my career to have broken that story and to continue to be able to break the story. And what motivates me, in addition to just the facts and the news. And by the way, there's no fake news. News is news. There's no alternative facts. There are facts.
Facts are facts.
Right. And so the irreparable harm done by the previous president to for many people believing somehow that journalism is bad. Journalism is the essence and the key to democracy.
Right.
But I always double, triple, quadruple check everything. All these years later, I'm reading a column 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times,
Yeah.
double checking names, double checking everything. Because knock on wood, I've really never, we all make maybe a little mistake or something, but I never, knock on wood, made a big one. And I don't plan to, because I just am so thorough and want to be, because I respect the opportunities I've been given and the place that I have in journalism, and I don't take anything for granted. And I know that a huge mistake, I wouldn't get fired. I'd resign, because I would
Right.
be, that would be,
Right.
that's how I was raised. But again, hopefully that won't happen.
I mean, the stakes are so high, but also, getting access to that information and then validating it. It just seems like it could be a whole, that's a story in itself, apart from the actual story, So,
Oh yeah, I'm very fortunate to be able to do what I love, and to do it today. I love it today more than the day I started. And it's all about hard work and dedication to the task. I tell students all the time, Seth, I mentor many. I've talked to in the last 48 hours on the phone. I usually do it from my car when I'm driving somewhere. I, return a student's call. And yes, there's the secret to success is there's absolutely no secret to success.
that's right.
Just work harder than everybody
Right.
else, and use your
Right.
brain, and think through things clearly, and then double, triple, quadruple check everything you do.
Right. There is no magic bullet. There is no secret to success. It's called just work and work and work, and pay attention and keep trying to improve, at least from my perspective. Well, Christine, we're rounding up. I could ask you a bunch of questions, but I think I'd like to go into our section called 20 questions. These could be one-word answers. These could be kind of rapid fire. Take a crack at them, and we'll see where it takes us.
Sounds good.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, 20 questions with Christine Brennan. What's your favorite sport to cover?
Figure skating at the Winter Olympics, swimming at the Summer Olympics, and I also do love covering golf. The common denominator, all three individual athletes on the line. There's no teammate to look to and complain about, or not 10 other football players on your side of the ball. No, it's just that individual athlete. And I love covering those stories.
Yeah, and it does show in your work. I read when you write at the Masters, and I can feel that. While you love all the other sports, I can definitely feel the passion there. What sport do you dream of covering other than those three?
I've been lucky to pretty much cover everything. I've never been to the Australian Open or the French Open of the 4 tennis majors, Grand Slams. I've covered the other 2 many times, Wimbledon and the US Open. So maybe as a tennis player growing up, and I still occasionally played my whole life, the Australian Open and Roland Garros, probably within tennis, even though I've covered tennis for years. But those 2 locations. Other than that, I've pretty much covered everything I want to, and I'm so fortunate to still get a chance to.
What's your favorite sport to play?
I would say golf, although I also love kayaking on the Potomac River, and love walking and love shooting hoops with the niece every now and then, in the on the driveway. And as I said, a little tennis still, but golf, I do enjoy playing golf.
What sport do you wish you could play, but for some reason you either don't or you can't?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm lucky to be able to do a lot of things still, bike ride, et cetera. I still do all that. I guess maybe, I never had a chance to play ice hockey. My brother did. He's younger, but girls never played ice hockey when I was growing up. And I think I would have been pretty good at it. So, I've never thought of this till right now. So it's not like I'm pining away, but
Right.
Might have been fun to play ice hockey or to play it in a league of women
Right.
my age. But yeah.
Another Title IX result, women in Canada too, but the U.S. women's ice hockey team is excellent as well.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And that's all Title IX, 100%.
Yeah. What's your favorite place to travel?
I love London. I've been there a lot. Always feel like it's such really an easy trip, right? It's just, it's faster to get to London from the East Coast than it is to get to Honolulu from the East Coast.
Yeah. Or depending on the air traffic, it might take longer to get to Boston from DC.
Yes, exactly. So I'll say London. I love to travel anywhere, and I love new places, but London has always, felt so comfortable, and I know it so well.
All right. Pen and paper or keyboard?
I've gotten to the point with keyboard, I will take a lot of notes on, if I'm doing an interview, I'll have the person on speakerphone. I'll be recording it probably on another device, and then I'll use my laptop to type it in. So I still carry a notebook. I certainly take a lot of notes. I keep a journal, so I write that's pen and paper for keeping the journal without a doubt. But I think in terms of my work stuff, taking notes, I've gradually morphed more from that take notebook feeling to actually typing it in.
Keyboard it is. Most memorable interview.
Well, there's been a lot for sure. I feel very, very lucky. Don Shula was always a hero of mine as a fan of the Miami Dolphins when I was a young girl when they were so great in the mid to early 70s, mid 70s, 72, 73-ish. And so then 8-9 years later, I'm at the Miami Herald and I'm interviewing him. And I think it was just to continue. I don't know that I pick one, but just getting to know him and his gruffness, but then also how he respected me and really was so helpful on my NFL coverage in Miami and then also up here in Washington. So the late, great Don Shula, I think.
When do you do your best writing?
Probably more in the evening than in morning. I'm not necessarily a morning person, but I will answer as any journalist really should, Seth, is that I do it when I need to. So if there's breaking news, like I got tipped off that the decision was going to be coming that the Russian anti-doping agency, which is the total oxymoron of all oxymorons,
it's called the Russian self-serving agency.
Exactly. When they were ruling on Valieva, I got that news, and then I was able to write it within a couple hours, and from like 10 in the morning to noon on a particular day. So it really kind of depends on when the news happens or when a deadline is. I will meet that deadline.
Who's your favorite journalist?
So many, certainly, but I will say someone who was a great mentor to me and also someone I looked up to prior to knowing him was Dick Schaap, the late great Dick Schaap. Yep. And he wrote books. He was a newspaper journalist, sports writer, and then of course a TV journalist with ABC and ESPN. And when I was doing ESPN Sports Reporters, which I would do every month or so, I'd be kind of a regular routine for several years in the 90s on ESPN. And I'd sit next to Dick Schaap. And I told him how I looked up to him. I saw him once on the street in New York when I was in a cab, and I just thought that was so cool. And, I just thought, if I could do anything close to what Dick Schaap was doing. And he looked at me and he said, and here you are sitting next to me. And you've made it, in other words, in a very humble way. Not that he was so cool at all, but just like, look where you are now. And that was in my 30s. And so, I'd say Dick Schaap, just a class act, wonderful person, lost way too young, and a great writer, and even better human being.
What is your favorite book?
Wow. I really love The Right Stuff. Tom Wolfe, love the way he wrote that. To Kill a Mockingbird is certainly up there as well. I mean, there's so many, but anything time travel-y. Jack Finney, a writer who wrote time travel books. I love time travel. So I'm waiting to travel back in time right now. If I get beamed away, you'll know I'm back at trying to save. So.
Do you speak any other languages?
Other than English? No. Okay. A little French, un peu. I took 2 years in junior high and I guess 3 years in high school of French. And most of it is forgotten, but every now and then I can uncork a sentence or two.
How do I rate as an interviewer?
10 out of 10.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, sure. Christine, I just can't express enough of appreciation for you taking the time. And I don't mean, anybody says, oh, we all are busy. I know how busy you are. You got TV waiting for you. You got deadlines. You got, editing to do. So just so appreciative. And I could go on and on. So many stories yet to uncover. We'd love to have you back at some point to dive a little bit deeper into these subjects. But thank you so much.
Seth, thank you. And thanks for all you do. Talk about a man of many talents and all you do for your clients. And you are so plugged in. And so many people know and respect and love you and love working with you. And I'm one of them. And so thank you for everything you do for me and for all of us who are so lucky to work with you. Thanks.
You got it. If you'd like to learn more about this speaker, visit our website at 𝑘eynotecurators.com. There you'll find dozens of videos of speakers that are a perfect fit for your event. If you'd like to reach out directly, please click on the link below in the description. My name is Seth Deckman, and you've been watching Curated Insights.